All right, I'm your host, Saber. This is Reaper One. Welcome to Fiddler Talk. All right, so we're going to be talking a little bit of everything, like some about mankind, some about philosophy, perspective. We're going to get to a couple other things. All right, so Reaper One. By the way, you just froze, and that was kind of fun.
Oh yeah, it was a long freeze, dude.
Yes, it was.
What the hell's going on?
Yeah, I'm sitting there. I was like, okay, well, here we go. So, great start to this episode, right?
Right?
All right. So, we're going to talk a little bit about mankind, and I kind of want to get to the Romans, about the Roman people back in the day. But we're also going to talk a little bit about current situations going on, and another one I kind of been researching this week heavily was mainly about the Romans and about a little bit more about the wars of going on. But we're going to try to keep philosophy, the perspective, and how the failures of these societies and how they collapse and stuff like that. I think that'd be a good way to go with this episode. There are some great philosophers out there too. One of my biggest sayings that I took away, and Reaper One has, I think he has the actual version of it that hasn't been changed. If you want to get that quote real fast.
Quote from who?
I don't know, that philosopher about the control that you were
Epictetus?
Yes.
Epictetus? Yeah, I got it right here. Hold on. Pull it up.
So, all right. Go for it.
Technical difficulties.
Of course, always,
Right? That's just how it goes. Okay, so Epictetus was a pretty great philosopher throughout. So I was doing a little bit of research. I wanted to be kind of blind-eyed to a lot of this, but essentially, I did a little bit of research, and he was kind of who I gravitated towards more out of a lot of people. Him and Seneca. So Epictetus said that our first job is this: to divide and distinguish things into two categories. Externals I cannot control, but the choices I make with regard to what I do control. Where will I find good and bad in me in my choices?
Okay, so yeah, see, that sounds like the long version of the quote that I heard, and I can't live by this quote, and it took me a minute to get to this quote, and that was man, you keep on phrasing. It's kind of funny. You move really fast. You move really fast and then you stop moving. It's like a speed up. It's kind of funny.
Hopefully the recording's fine.
Yeah, hopefully, man. So let's get it. The quote that I heard was, control what you control, don't control what you can't. And I want to say that they took it from that. Because it almost sounds about the same.
Probably. It's an old quote.
Yeah. And I mean, no one's going to remember that full quote.
No, of course
word
not.
for word. So why
unless
not?
Unless you're 16th century Shakespeare.
Yes, exactly. So here's why we are here on this, talking about names and philosophers. What attracted you to that guy?
The way he spoke. I read the Old Testament a lot, and it's the King James Version because I like the way it's written. I like a lot of old poetry because of the way it's written. I wasn't a big fan of Shakespeare, but I was a big fan. One of my favorite poems is Excelsior, and I can't remember who it's by. I read it a long time ago. But I like all these older ways of writing because I think it speaks volume to the way humanity works, right? We used to take time in calligraphy and writing and how we spoke and carried ourselves. And if you notice throughout the years, especially throughout the last 2 decades, we've slowly but surely started to go downhill. Everything is abbreviated. Everything is slang. Instead of saying, instead of saying you're a liar, people now say that's cap. Which is crazy because we're taking words that mean something and words don't mean anything anymore. They mean so much, and it's a weird way to look at things. I think that's why I gravitated towards him. Long story short, I like the way he writes.
Yeah. So going into the way we talk nowadays, the way we say things, it's huge, man. It's just like the way we're carrying ourselves. I remember when I was younger, they were telling us like, "Hey, like get your vocabulary up, study, like learn
Right.
new words." I mean, my vocabulary's not that strong. Still working on it. I actually have an app on my phone that I think it's every hour on the hour. It pops up a new word to teach me a new word.
When I write lyrics, I have a thesaurus on my phone. I'll go and I'll think of a word and be like, what's a better word for this? And I'll just scroll for 35 minutes looking for the best word I like. So I discover a lot of interesting words from that.
So, all right, here's a huge thing. Um, when I first joined the military, and I didn't know what latrine meant. I'm gonna be honest. I was like, "What the hell is a latrine?" And a lot of people, like, still to this day, because now I say latrine all the time. I don't say bathroom. I don't say restroom. I say,
No,
"Hey,
right?
where's your latrine?" That's just something
Dude,
I picked up.
the word sounds like there's a hole, like a gutter cut in the floor, and it's an old dingy bathroom. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
When I think of latrine, I think of you go in and you pee on the floor.
So, but when you sit there and think about it, you go around and you ask these people, like, when I go to the grocery store and I'm like, "Hey, where's your latrine at?" They're like, "What?" A lot. I get that answer. The first thing I get from them is like, "Wait, what?" And then they're like, "Oh, bathroom." So
Restroom,
yeah, a
like
lot of people still confuse it, and I'm like, it's not a common word. It's not a common thing. It's common in the military. It's common around a military base,
yeah.
but it's not common elsewhere. And I'm finding that out with like speech and stuff. Um, Going into the Roman history, so we can get into a little bit of art of war. By the way, the art of war is studied. Hey, this is huge. All West Point grads have to study the art of war, but I don't think they understand it because I still don't understand it, and I'm still learning it. And I have read that book now 4 times, and I still don't understand it, and I'm still learning from it. But I watch documentaries. I have been studying the art of war like crazy, because that's where we're at, right? Let's get into the Roman Empire. Things that happened during the Romans. So there's a thing that happened back in I want to say it was back around Afghan area, but they had the Afghan people, and I thought this was really cool. They had a university back then. They built a university where people went and wrote like scrolls, wrote these scrolls with knowledge. Do you ever hear about that?
Yeah, I mean, colleges have been around for a long time, and it
Yeah.
wasn't. So a lot of people mistake colleges for now. Today's society is you go, you get taught something, and you get a degree for that. Colleges weren't that back then; they were a lot different. So they might not be called colleges back then, right? A lot of them might not have been called colleges because a lot of them were just libraries. You go, you study something, you write books, and you add to the library.
Yeah.
And then people would go and read past students, teachings and learnings.
And
A lot of your old philosophers were in school reading old books and writing what they were learning.
yeah. And putting their perspective into it.
Hmm.
Some of the things that I thought was kind of cool about this is I think we're divided, not only as a nation,
Oh,
but
100%.
as a human species. I think we're very divided. And um this is a theory for me. If I was an alien and I was flying by this planet to observe, I wouldn't communicate with us. These are the reasons why. I wouldn't communicate with us due to the fact that we're not technologically advanced, we're not emotionally advanced, and we don't understand how to. Because if we're fighting each other, what are we going to do to a species that comes out of nowhere? Are we going to fight them?
I think we are way too technically advanced. So I kind of think the opposite. I think that we rely on technology way too much. It used to be, well, trying to research these things to fight this or to deal with this sort of thing. And think of nowadays, right? Technology is used solely for money.
Yeah, we're greedy.
That's it.
The human beings are greedy. So I was kind of watching.
So we stopped like researching and trying to develop new things.
We stopped. Yes, I'm going to agree with you on this one. We stopped researching and developing things that are going to help us progress. We are doing it for the capital. Now, it's not about doing it for the people. It's about doing it for the capital.
I think if we would have spent as much time as we did on the iPhone on space travel, we would be on Mars colonized already. I think if we would have put all that time into something meaningful, like curing cancer, like we put a lot of money into cell phones and cars and iPads and that kind of thing. And if we would have put that attention towards something greater, I think we would have achieved a lot more.
So kind of get into society, and back in the philosophy days and stuff like that, in society, I think back in the old days, when that college and that university was being built and that stuff was happening, and we had all those scrolls and everything, all that information. Like, I forgot what country there's like a library that's still from the ancient times that has tons of information, but no one's allowed to go and look at it.
Right.
And I think that's evil. I think that's cruel. I think we should be able to access that information because that's only going to progress us forward as humans. And once we figure out how to unite as one and stop fighting each other to just fight each other because we have different perspectives with each other, I think we could be dominant in our little solar system. We would figure out more. We would progress a lot more.
Are you talking about the Great Library of Alexandria?
I believe so. I think it is that library.
It's in Egypt.
Yeah, and see, but I think there's only like 2 people that could access it. It's like the Pope or.
So there's a lot of really, really great libraries, and there was a lot of knowledge that was burnt during seizures, and a lot of knowledge lost.
So there's theories. People were talking about the theory of the ancients had lasers and all this other stuff. And I think we possibly did have that stuff at one time. But because of raids and people coming in raiding, I think what happened was we just destroyed that society and we destroyed that knowledge. And those people that raided, instead of taking that information and learning, they just wiped it clean. And so it was forgotten history.
I think we just got lazy. People talk about the pyramids all the time and how they must have been built by aliens. They were built by the Jews. Jews were slaves, and they were forced to work hard. There was no easy work. There was no, let me develop something to do this better. So we lost all that ways of, we lost the best ways of building and creating because nobody knows how to anymore. Because everybody tried to develop an easier way to do it. There are cities that were dug from the top down out of stone. They were chiseled. Yeah. They started from the top. The whole city started from the top of the mountain, chiseled down, and there's incredible. And you look at the way architecture has evolved in history, and you think back to why was that built like that? There's all these gargoyles and all these like fancy little things in the walls and stuff like that. It was a guy with a chisel and a rock, and he messed up, and he's like, let me just do this real quick. That's why nothing looks the same. It's because everybody's like doing it on their own. It was art. Architecture was literal art. It was sculpted and created. Cities were sculpted and created. It's not I don't personally think it was a loss of technology. I think it was a loss of knowledge in the way we do things.
Yeah, it's a loss of culture.
I mean, think about it now, man. When a skyscraper is built or a building is built, it's built off of a blueprint, off of a specific design. It's followed to the T. And I mean, because you have to, right? Because you got OSHA and all these all these organizations making sure that it's built properly. but there is no, there's no feel to it anymore. And
Yeah.
everything's designed to make it easier, right? You have the crane to pick things up. Didn't have cranes back then. You had a rope and, 80 people.
Yeah. Hey, job security.
People forget just how strong like humankind is.
Which it kind of comes with our brains, man. We are complex species, and we develop the brain, and we use our brain because we decide to that same work smarter, not harder. That's basically what happened. Is we started working a lot smarter and then working harder. But in reality, we're still slaves. We're still slaves to the emperor. If you don't believe me, we're still slaves.
we stopped trying to quit being slaves. We stopped trying to get out of that reality and just started making the slave reality comfier.
Yes. That was the thing, right?
The rich made it more comfy for the poor to live and to serve, and we don't notice.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. We're still a slave every day. Because are you literally out there doing everything that you wanted to do? Are you able to try? I'm just saying, back in the day, those people were like, "Hey, I'm gonna go travel over here. I don't know what's over here, but I'm gonna go," and they just gotta put go.
Right.
Cool. Left whatever they had. Left it. Took what they could carry on their backs and went. Can we do that today?
Honestly, if I could travel back at any time, it'd probably be 14th, 15th century, because I think getting on a boat and traveling the world and discovering things would be probably the best experience you could have as a human being. The discovery of America, discovery of the New World was probably one of the coolest things that happened in the world. It was probably incredible because you had this society for so long in the West that just, or sorry, the East, my bad. You had this society that they had no idea it even existed. And then all of a sudden, the world is flat. And all of a sudden it's not flat. And there's more land, an incredible amount of more land. And there's people in society that we've never even seen before. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, here's the next thing, man. Like, I think it's kind of interesting to kind of get into it if you look at the times back then, we had the Egypt doing their thing. China was doing their thing. By the way, China never really fought with the Europeans. China has always been like somewhat of a trader. Traders back then. Let's talk about trading. The people that went and explored to go and find new stuff to go and trade, those are the real entrepreneurs. Those are the real adventurers. Because of what they did, they went and met with other people that did not speak their language and figure out how to trade, communicate in a way to trade and show that they're not a threat to them. By the way, if you kind of look at China, never really fought anyone other than themselves. So we're going to kind of turn right into the wartime of this. But China never really fought anyone but themselves, because the first emperor of China took role in China, and he had to fight people within him. All right. So you switch over. They had the Mongolians that took over. So the Mongolians took over. And then they had the
that was the Mongolian Empire, man, but that was Genghis Khan, so you can't.
Yeah, but,
whole other story.
No, it does. It's a whole different environment. But I'm just saying, China never really they had a fight within themselves. And then we had the next empire that came up that took over the Mongolians and took over from there, and just China just stayed fighting China. China never fought outwards. The Europeans got greedy and they were fighting each other, but they also went and fought Egypt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got a little greedy, and then China wasn't looking to go explore and see what's on the other side of the world. They're happy in their little area. They were happy in their little circle.
Well, you got to remember, man, people really thought the world was flat. They really thought that if you traveled too far, you were just going to go off the edge. People were scared.
Yeah.
Fear controlled a lot of that back then. And when they set sail, people started exploring, people were like, "You're crazy. We're not going. We're not supporting you. Like, you're just gonna die." So that was a big thing back then, man. So it's not that they were like, "Oh, we don't care." It was because every
wasn't on their agenda.
every single civilization in history wants more.
Yeah.
You know, you find an apple, humanity is going to cut it in two. You know,
Actually, so I got a question.
Everybody wants more.
All right, so this is another huge question. It's kind of, we have philosophy, right? And the way the philosophy believes in, it's almost like a belief in something, right? That's the definition I took away from philosophy. So we are totally two different kind of people. Now I got a question for you.
Right.
And if I'm taking it too far, let me know. You believe in, you have your religion, you believe in it. Do you think nowadays that a lot of people fell out of religion and we don't have faith anymore?
100%, right? So, I'll be the first to tell you I'm not religious. A religion is a man-made thing, right? God is real. So is the devil. Pick a side. It's that simple, right? Christ came down. Christ died. The Bible is 90% of the Bible is correct. A lot of it's been proven accurate. Right? I could go into evolution all day. I studied evolution for 12 years of my life. Evolution has no basis of reality. There is nothing they can't prove it right. And technically you cannot prove it wrong. And evolution exists on a smaller scale. We didn't come from monkey, right? But things evolve. The world has evolved over time, right? So you could say that all you want, right? God is real. So is the devil. Pick a side. And it's that simple, right? Good versus evil. And the people that believe in evil and good and pick evil, that's a whole different pie, right? So we're having societies, right, choose themselves over God, because if they choose themselves and they choose to believe that God isn't real, they can justify doing whatever they want, right? The Bible tells us what's right and wrong, and it's morally set. And a lot of it is good morally, right? Most of all of it is. And people argue and be like, well, there were slaves back then. The Bible says to treat your slaves kindly. Slavery has been a thing for all of human time.
Yeah, slavery been around for
slavery.
We're still in slavery right now.
There is still slavery to this day. And the Bible says to treat your slaves fairly, to shelter them, to feed them, to take care of them. Like, what's wrong with that? And so there's a lot of things that people take out of the Bible, like a lot of things to take out about women. You got to remember, times change, things change, right? Things weren't seen the way they're seen. They were, 800 AD. Things were very, very, very different. You can think about how different they were 400 years ago when America didn't exist.
So, by the way, to get further into this, did you know the Romans? So this is kind of weird to me to think about. Back in the day when the Romans controlled majority of the land, the king, the empire, believed that he was God. Like, he believed that he had the most power. He actually did not have a religion for the beginning part of Rome. And then it was one king at that time was very sick, and people convinced him to be baptized. And that's what got the Romans into religion.
So technically not, right? So way back in the day when Christ was on the earth, right? He was the king of the Jews, right? He come down. I'm the son of God, the king of the Jews. The Jews were the ones that didn't like it, right? So a lot of people misunderstand this, right? But if you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you can kind of see the full story. So the Jews went to Pilate, who, the Roman Empire, right? They went to Pilate and they asked him to crucify Christ, because their laws, the Jews' laws, they didn't allow it. They couldn't kill him. Pilate didn't want to do it. He asked him several times to show me what evil Christ had done. He had all but try to rationalize with these people, right? He asked if, I will release this murderer, or I could release Christ, who has done nothing wrong and has actually, been known to heal people and to help people. He expelled demons. Christ did a lot of good deeds. And, the people begged for Pilate to crucify Christ. So eventually, right, Pilate washed his hands clean, and that was kind of the start of religion. Because obviously there were people in Rome that didn't agree with it, and there were people that did agree with it, right? But they crucified him. And it's a great story if you look at, for the start, that's why I like to start with the Roman Empire, because I think that's when the Roman Empire really started, was the crucifixion of Christ.
Yeah.
And you look back, you can look back through all of history, right? And there are effects on the world through religion, right? America was founded on the basis of religion. The forefathers didn't like the way Europe was going. They didn't like the immorality of it.
I think they were called like Purists or something like that. Like that word here in the US. But to kind of go, I just think it's kind of interesting as the Roman Empire was going through this, right? Going through their own thing. And because we don't have phones, we don't have the internet, we didn't have nothing like that. We didn't have newspapers, we didn't have nothing. But the Chinese was going.
We had pigeons. Pigeons, man.
I don't even think the pigeons were trained like that back then.
You better believe it.
I just know, like back then, they also had like the Chinese was going through their own thing. India was going through theirs. The Egypts were going through their the religion was changing everywhere. Everywhere is changing. Everyone's gathering religion around the same time. And I think that's kind of cool. It's interesting that during that time, everyone was creating their own type.
Well, you gotta remember, right? It all stems from the one true God, the God of Israel, right? So way back in Genesis, right, we talk about the Tower of Babel. Everybody spoke the same language. Everybody was congregated in the same location, and they wanted to build a tower, right? They wanted to build this tower. And I won't go through the whole story, but essentially God's like, nope. And everybody started speaking different languages. Yeah. So, right, when you go back to perspective, so everybody has their own perspective, right? Not everybody learns the same things. Not everybody knows the same things, right? So you have these groups of people. All of a sudden, you don't speak the same language anymore. You're ching chang wong, bing bang boogaloo. Like, I can't understand you, so I'm gonna go over here with these people that I understand, right? And then all of a sudden, like, wait a minute, no, God says this. This is what I heard, right? So all of a sudden, things start to change or start to evolve because of people's perspective.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting to kind of get into.
Islam comes mainly from Ishmael, right? Jacob's brother, who lost a birthright, and he was still promised. I think it was 12 generations. So he went off to a different land, which is, I'm not the smartest person when it comes to theology, but people have traced it back to the Middle East and the start of Islam. Right. So there's a lot of things that explain it, man. You just got to do the research. It's a lot of research.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of history in it that teaches us how to be better humans today.
Right.
And I think the problem is, I think what me and you were on a phone call, and I was like, hey, just believe in the system, man. Just believe in the system that we're doing. Right? And I think what's happening now is a lot of people don't have a belief system anymore. And that's why
I'd say 90% of people don't.
And I think that's why society is the way we are. And I think that's why depression is becoming a thing. Mental health is becoming more of a thing. Not only because we're talking about it.
I very much contribute that to social media.
And it is. It could be social media, but it's also not having a belief system.
You know that saying that you can be alone in a crowded room?
Yes.
So I wrote this poem back like 2020, 2021, I think. It's called Alone, right? And I basically go through and the poem's, is speaking about how, and I was really alone at this time. I was going through my own, difficult times, right? Everybody does at one point. But I'm talking about how there's people in the room dancing and putting on masks and being happy with each other. But you could be alone in a room of people, right? You can be alone in that time. And what you don't realize is everybody is putting on a mask. And I think that's what it is. I think that's what, because you see somebody who's happy and who's, on social media, they're taking these pictures with these fancy cars because they see a fancy car out there and they go up and take a picture real quick. They take pictures by these buildings. They Photoshop themselves into places. People's got a way of making it look like they want a plane going somewhere, right? Yeah. So you follow some of these people on social media and like, these people have it so much better than I have it because they're wearing this mask and nobody thinks, oh, that person probably has it difficult too. So that makes them depressed. And then you see society and the pills and Big Pharma is pushing all these medications because they want money, of course. It's crazy.
So, again, before we get into the war stuff and like some of that, but one of the things I say is this stuff it is coming from social media. It's coming from all that stuff. But it's not having a belief system. Having a belief system will make it feasible. Because if I believe in something and I'm working and trying to stay on that path, then I'm going to block out everything else that doesn't go in that path, right? So staying fit, right now I'm believing that as long as I go and stay fit, cool, I'm gonna progress. I go and do certain things, I'm gonna progress in my life, and that's huge. And that back then in the old days, I say them believing in some kind of religion or something like that help them get where they're at.
To bring it back to the original question, I do believe that we're losing ourselves and we're losing God, and I believe that is the start. That's why we're downfalling as humanity, because we are throwing out morality, we are throwing out human kindness.
Yes,
we're putting on these masks of, oh, I care. No, I totally care. Like I care exactly. But it's because it's benefiting you, right? If you say you care online, it means that you get followers and you get shares and you get that attention.
You're doing it just for the likes.
People are throwing away morality, and we're designed to follow. We're designed to follow leaders.
Yes. So even if you're a leader, you're still a follower. What makes the best leader is someone that can follow. And that's true. But also thinking outside of the box instead of staying inside the box is true too. Being able to step out and step out of your perspective, understand other perspectives, and then step back in and be like, hey, cool. Look, we need to step back, observe what's going on, and then come back in. Be like, all right, now we can go and execute this mission.
So, since we're talking about philosophy, right? My question: who is your favorite old philosopher? Like we can talk 18th century to the beginning of time, and who is your favorite modern day philosopher?
Ooh, modern day. I haven't really found a modern day philosopher.
So, philosophy, on my perspective of it, what I took away from it, and I don't study philosophy, but I did this week a little bit to be prepared for this episode, and it is a way of thinking about questions, right? Okay. So, if you take that into perspective, technically we're all philosophers.
Yeah.
So who is, like, if you really think about that and you really think about the way people talk nowadays, who would be your favorite modern day philosopher?
So if I'm going to think of someone that comes out and is going to be talking, I guess you could say, I would say it'd probably be like the way, because Tim Kennedy, the way he talks, the way he says things, I'm very intrigued. I like what he says. He's also a role model to me. That's my role model. I strive to get to where he's at and what he's doing and how he got there. I strive for that. Here's the next one, Jocko Willink. I look at him and I think I'm interested on the way where he's at and where he's going. He's also, there's something that Jocko said. He's all like, find a mentor. And if you can't find a mentor in person, there's tons of mentors that are in books.
Right.
Go read a book. They can mentor you.
In philosophy, logic is key, right? So there was a big thing back in the day. People were talking. How do we how do we develop and decide what is true philosophy and what is right and what is incorrect. And they kind of just got together and was like, well, logic is key, so obviously birds fly.
Are you
There's
sure they fly?
there's
Or are we
logic in the
flying?
way birds fly, right? But obviously birds are in the air, they're in the sky, and we are not, right? So that's logic. So if somebody says, well, what if we're flying? Logically speaking, we're not flying. So the way people speak about philosophy nowadays, you got to remember that if you're going to speak about philosophy, you're going to ask a question that retains or pertains to philosophy. Logic is key.
Yeah. So to go read back down to my old philosopher that I like, I guess it's Pluto. And I might be wrong. I'm not the smartest guy around here, and I don't know that much, but I want to say it's Pluto. So Pluto was out one day, like sunbathing or whatever, doing whatever Pluto does.
It's not a planet.
The great Alexander walked up to him, was standing over him, blocking the sun. He's all, is there something I could do for you? And Pluto says, get out of my sunlight. To the king, the emperor.
Right.
All right. Which would have been frowned upon back then. And Alexander the Great said, if I wasn't the Alexander, I wish I could be him.
Yeah, there you go.
You quote me, I might be wrong in the quote the way I said it, but in theory, that's what happened. And so
if
I
he's
thought
wrong, spam the comments and tell him he's wrong and call him a piece of crap.
Yeah, go for it. All right.
I would say my favorite old philosopher would be Christ. Christ had a very specific way of speaking, and he loved speaking parables, which it created a way of thinking for people, and I think it's pretty great. And people still quote Christ. Lisp. People still quote Christ to this day. So that would be my from the older times, right? My favorite philosopher. If you would call Jesus a philosopher, I would. And then nowadays, like presently speaking, I think like people like Jordan Peterson.
Yes.
Probably one of my favorites. Just the way he thinks and the way he speaks and carries himself. He has he does have a philosophy, right? You can call him a philosopher. He has a philosophy about the way he speaks and the way people should speak, and he's got a way of thinking. And that's what philosophy is. So
before we run out of time, we still got to talk about the Fiddler Initiative, and we'll probably have to, like I said, the Art of War is something. So we'll probably have to do a whole segment on the.
We'll come back on it when I've read it.
Yeah, I need you to read that because I've been studying the Art of War.
I've been slacking, and I apologize to you and the people.
And I'm gonna quote this real fast. We got to learn the difference between playing chess and playing the Go board. So I think it's called like Chinese checkers or something, but the name should be the Go board. And so the Go board is the object of the Go board is to take as much territory. Chess is taking out the king, right? Well, what happened in the Vietnam War is we were so focused about playing chess when the general over there was so focused about playing the Go board. So he was worried about taking territory. He wasn't worried about taking out the leaders.
I think that if we really want to win wars, we should put the entire army on a line, hands across the America, and just mow everything down. That would be the way to do it.
So here's the we are so worried about fighting conventional warfare.
I know.
When nowadays it's not going to happen. Look at the world. We do not fight conventionally anymore.
It's never happened, man. It's never happened.
So
they called flamethrowers inhumane, even though we're like blowing people half up. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So it's not even that. It's the way like we train. I'm gonna say this in the military right now. We train like we're back in the Civil War, where we get on one side, we line up, and we're expecting our enemy to line up the same way. We fire, they fire. We fire, they fire. That's literally how we train.
It's not your turn, man.
Yeah, that is literally how we train right now. If you go look at how you have our fighting vehicles maneuver downrange, side by side. Yeah.
So as a kid, dude, I always imagined war as like they play it in like Lord of the Rings, where there's just a big army on one side and a big army on the other side, and everybody just kind of smushes. And I was always thinking, I'm like, well, what if somebody has to use the bathroom? Did they stop the war? I was like 4 or 5, and I asked my dad that question. He laughed. He laughed his ass off. Because I was serious, dude. I was like 4 or 5, and I'm like, if somebody has to use the bathroom, you just be like, pause, time out. I gotta go.
Hey, team, I'm taking a team timeout right now.
That's what I had no idea, and I kind of wish that's what war was, because that'd be hilarious.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie. It might become that way here soon. Have you seen Basic Training? Yellow card.
Right?
Hey,
oh,
you can't yell at me. Yellow card.
Excuse me, you're shooting at me too much. Turn it down.
Yeah, that's where we're at now. So
I don't have that many bullets.
Hold on. Can you pause for a second? I broke it down. That's where we're at. that is where we're going. But yeah, we would have to do a whole segment on the art of war, because I'm intrigued by it. West Point grads study the art of war, but all the West Point people that I have served with, I don't think they understand it. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't understand it. And I've been I read it 4 times. Wrote down notes. I got a notebook with notes. I have watched documentary after documentary on it. So it's a good book. Highly recommend reading that one. We will have to cover it, hopefully soon. Let's get into the Fiddler Initiative.
I have one more quote while we still have a little bit of time for philosophy to end it off. And it's from the philosopher Seneca. And he said that no good thing is pleasant to possess without friends to share it. And if anybody takes away anything from today, that is truly... I was never happier when I was in the barracks, hanging out with everybody every weekend, sharing everything with my family, you know?
Yes, I will say that. Like, look, man, I have been to the experience where I have worked myself to a certain point, and I had nothing to. I have worked myself so high and got so much, and I have no one to share it with. It's a very, lonely, man. Very lonely, disappointing life. They say money can't make. People say money can't buy happiness. That's wrong. Money can buy happiness, but having to share with people that you're with makes you even happier.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to do Fiddler Fit on a clip, so go check out that clip. Hopefully we'll put it in the description below. So please like, follow, share, go to the Facebook pages, go to the Instagram page, go to TikTok page. I know TikTok, right? But we have it until it gets deleted. We're on Twitter. I tweet sometimes. I'm not very funny.
The good old tweets.
I'm pretty sure Elon Musk won't kick me off, but he might. I'm bald now, so I don't know. Thank you guys for tuning in. Reaper One.
All right, yeah. Tune in. Go to all our sites. Go to the tweet. Go to all of that. Subscribe. Watch the videos. Yeah.
Click the bell. Look, you have to do that. I have to say that. I'm legally contracted by YouTube to say that. Click the bell.
Hey, by the way, I hope you guys enjoy Reaper One's new look. We're gonna try to keep him like this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
we're gonna keep him like this. I just tried it. I liked it.
So, all right, Reaper One's out. So, Saber Main out.